Hello guys and welcome back to a new video. If you will enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments to help me boost this video. Thanks. Story 1. TIFU by setting up my BF to look like the village idiot. Obligatory English isn't my first language, and I'm on mobile, so sorry for the formatting. Plus it did happen today, though it's the result of years of build up. It's very dumb too, so buckle up. So for context, I'm a huge bookworm. I'll read almost any genre, and reading is one of my favorite things. My BF, on the other hand, is not into books. He has a handful of genres and topics that he will make an effort for, but he generally doesn't like to read books. And sometimes he'll ask me what I'm reading about. Some books I know he'll love the story of but won't read, so those I explain well, and we have a nice sharing time together. Others I know he'll be bored about halfway through me explaining the plot, and in these cases, I can see his attention drifting, and it's frustrating to spend time answering a question when you're not being listened to. So I started making up shit sometimes. Honestly, I thought of it as a harmless prank, and really had no ill intent. I legit thought that I'm the only person with whom he discusses books anyway, so it doesn't hurt anyone. Yeah, well, turns out I definitely do not have the gift of foresight. I have no idea how he ended up discussing books with this guy at a bar. We were with a group of friends of his and their spouses, and he started a conversation with a guy there, but somehow he did. I think this guy used some kind of analogy with the Scarlet Letter. Now, as far as my BF is concerned, The Scarlet Letter is a book about a soldier who mortally wounded a Japanese deserter on accident, witnessed him dying, and then found on the corpse a letter soaked in blood, and decided to deliver it himself. I knew Hawthorne's story would have him yawning in my face in a few seconds, but a WWII epic story that he'd listen to. Problem is, now my BF is confused, and as soon as he opens his mouth and starts talking, it's the other guy that get confused. They're obviously not talking about the same thing. I jumped in and said something about there being a second book by another author, which I didn't remember, and the conversation went on. Later, when we were home, I did explain to my BF what had happened. I figured I owed him that. The incident made me feel so guilty, and he was confused at first. He asked why I'd done that, and I was like, explaining some books was boring for both of us, so I made it entertaining. And much to my relief, that cracked him up. He said that it was actually cute that I'd invented stories to entertain him, but demanded that I made a list of all the books I'd done that with, so he'd know not to make a fool of himself in the future. He's already cracking jokes at my expense about it left and right, and it looks like it's gonna stick, which is fine by me, lol. Story 2. TIFU by playing with my cat way too aggressively. I made this throwaway when my ex-fiancé cheated on me. I wanted to put his ass on blast online, but I never really got into doing it because I couldn't relive the details. Short background, we were together for 11 years before getting engaged. On our 10th, I moved to a different country for a job, and we agreed he'd move with me. He was very supportive. On our 11th anniversary, he visited me and proposed. We were engaged for 6 months when I caught him cheating. Anyway, this happened a few weeks after our breakup. Since I invited some of my colleagues to our wedding, we were all expats in the company, so we all became friends. I had to inform them about what happened and how the wedding would not push through. They were very, very sympathetic about it, even after I assured them I was fine. So much so that they gave me a cat so I won't feel lonely at home. A fat chunk I named Senator Goobert. Now Senator Goobs is a very well-behaved cat. He doesn't scratch or hiss, and he's very chill. You can scratch him everywhere, and we wouldn't flinch. I've grown very fond of him, and at this point, if he dies, I am certain it would be more painful than getting cheated on. Now comes my fuck up. I bought Gooby a string toy, and he loves it. His eyes just blows up, and he goes crazy about it. Imagine a fat cat bouncing around, just chasing a toy mice attached to a string. He was so fluffy, I started scratching his belly. I guess he got overstimulated because I was a bit aggressive with the belly rub that he started kicking my arm away and ended up accidentally scratching me in the process. Since he never scratched me, I never noticed how sharp his claws were. The scratches were deep to the point blood was oozing out of my wounds. I immediately tended to it and continued playing with him. I never really thought anything of it until the next day when I went to the office. People noticed the bandages near my wrist, and I told them it was from the little goblin they gave me. But you said he's very chill. They asked in unison. I told them what happened, and they just nodded and went on with their day. A few hours after lunch break, I got called into HR for check-in. I was a bit worried because I had no idea what they're checking in for. I got into the office, sat down the chair, and immediately asked the HR, am I in trouble? She said no and proceeded to ask me how I'm doing, nothing related about work, and how I'm coping with the breakup. She then said, you know, we are here for you, right? And if you need help, there are orgs that can help you, such as. That's when it hit me. They thought I tried to off myself. I laughed it off and assured the HR that my story was indeed true, and it was just a cat scratch. She laughed awkwardly and told me she still wants to ensure me that they are there for me. 30 more minutes of awkward convo before she let me go back to my work. When I got back, my colleagues were waiting for me, asking if I'm fine and all. I told them yes, it was really Booger's scratch, and I will never try to harm myself. We went for drinks after, and I went home to my cat, berating him for what happened. Story 3. TIFU by assuming my boyfriend was developmentally delayed instead of being a stereotypical man. I grew up around mostly women plus my father. My dad is a 50 divided by 50 chore and life splitter feminist icon without realizing he is one. I also grew up without gender roles being imposed on me. I just did what I wanted and wore what I wanted. I thought my family was typical of most people, and me and my boyfriend moved in together a few years back. Great times all around, and then the issues came. He didn't know how to do laundry, cook, keep a house clean, and all the other little chores. I taught him how, and then he struggled to keep it on a regular schedule. I had to wake him up every morning so he would go to work. I still keep an alarm on for him just in case, which is used once a week. He will come home from work, get changed in the living room, leaving a pile of clothes and his bag in the middle of the room, and play his PS4 for the rest of the day. There's a lot of small stuff he just doesn't get. Clean the sink of tour beard trimmings. If you piss on and behind the seat, you have to clean it up or it gets rancid and gross. There's lots of other things he does where he cannot function if he lived alone. I genuinely thought he had developmental delays. In my head, people don't struggle like this without something not working right. Me being nice and supportive decided to research a bunch of things to help him cope with his day-to-day. I have star charts, mini posters around the house with pictures going through the process of how to do things step by step. I've got a little calendar on the wall for his tasks for the day that he can tick off. I have even changed the way I speak to him to be more direct with a bunch of positive reinforcement. It hasn't helped 100%, but it did help a little bit. It's more manageable. I've never invited friends around my place and have never told anyone about his issues. I didn't want to embarrass what he couldn't help, as it's our business, not the rest of the world's. A few weeks back I went to visit a very close friend who I haven't seen in a long time. It was just me and I stayed over for a few days. It was really nice not having to look after my boyfriend, as she is someone who I've been close to forever and trust with secrets I opened up about struggling with my boyfriend's issues and how I'm thinking of pushing to get him a diagnosis. Turns out he isn't developmentally disabled. He just went straight from living with a mother who did everything for him to me. It's a somewhat common thing that a lot of men need to grow out of when they reach adulthood. Do you know how mortifying it is to find out that your boyfriend is just lazy, and you being nice and helpful is actually a waste of time? Me and my friend keep messaging each other about this, and I'm close to just packing it up and leaving. I am such a massive idiot. I should have noticed it sooner or told someone sooner. None of this keep it between us malarkey. Story 4. TIFU by not being able to understand what the hell my barber was talking about and getting a line shaved into my head. I enjoy my barber for the pure convenience. It's literally a few-minute walk. I can walk there, get my hair cut, and be back home within half an hour. Well, when I first started going there, my barber was all right. No issues. Then one time she missed a portion of my head that I had to fix myself in the mirror when I got home. And everybody makes mistakes, and convenience won, and I went back. Then there was an issue where she wasn't happy with her tip, which I talked about here, $20 haircut, $5 tip. Then when the price went up to $23, the $5 tip didn't seem to make her very happy, and it was this awkward thing. I ended up giving in and just tipping more. It was cheap, walking distance, and I hate trying to find a new barber. Since then I had her miss a portion of my hair again, leaving it noticeably longer than the rest, and I went home and cut it down in the mirror. So I'm thinking, this lady's losing it, and I noticed that her availability has been a lot more open lately, too. A testament to this is that I used to have to book an appointment with her 2 weeks in advance. Last time I went, every single one of her appointments was open. And last night when I booked my appointment for today, none of them were booked. I even told my girlfriend it's odd that she went from completely booked up to completely free. So I'd book an appointment. I walk in and everybody's lined up waiting for the other barbers, and my lady's just sitting there. She seems happy to see me. I think I was the only customer she had that day. So I go in and she is talking to me and asks me how old my girl is. I thought she meant my girlfriend, so I answered. Then she said, "No, your kid." I don't have any kids. I told her, no, I just have animals. And she said, "Oh, you'll have them soon." And it was like a straight minute of me being like, "No, we don't want kids." "Oh, but someday." "No, we don't want kids. But soon, right?" Then she asks me if I want a straight line and gestures to my hairline. I have no idea what that is. My barber has a thick accent, speaks softly, and wears a mask. So I think she's trying to explain it. But I can't hear fuck all, and I feel bad asking her to repeat herself because I feel like I am being rude by not understanding her accent. I say, "What do I usually get?" She says, "You usually get it." And I say, "Okay, I guess, do what I usually get." Buzz, a fucking stupid line on one side of my head. She can see the horrified look on my head. "Oh, you don't get that?" "No." "Oh, sorry, I'll fix it," and proceeds to buzz down the sides of my head even shorter in an attempt to fix it, but it looks like somebody tried to shoot me and the bullet just grazed my head and took my hair with it, lol. No pictures, too embarrassed. So I literally couldn't understand her and asked her to just give me what I usually get, and I get this. I'm pretty sure she must be confusing me with somebody else. She seems very confused. And I am starting to realize why nobody is booking appointments with her anymore when she used to be so busy. At least this will grow back, lol. Next time I gotta figure out what the hell somebody's talking about when they ask you if you want something, and actually know what it is before agreeing to it. Story 5. TIFU by setting off the alarm at work. Yesterday I fucked up bad. A few months ago I started a new job at very small company. The owner is very hands-on, so every Friday before we leave, we're supposed to leave our paperwork for the week in their office for approval. They come in on the weekend to review and give it back to us on Monday with any changes that are needed. Yesterday I was being trained on something complicated at the end of the day. As soon as I got home, I realized I had been concentrating so much on what I was being trained on that I had completely forgotten to bring my paperwork to the owner's office. I only live a few minutes away, and the building is kept locked 24/7, so I have a key card to get in. I figured it would just take a minute to run in and take my paperwork to owner's office. As soon as I opened the door, I knew I fucked up. It never occurred to me that there was an alarm. At this point, I knew the alarm was going to go off no matter what I did, so I ran to my office, grabbed the paperwork, ran to owner's office to put it in the appropriate tray, and ran out. I didn't know if the police were going to come, if the alarm company would notify the owner or office manager, or what would happen. I don't have anyone's number to call and let them know what happened, so I just left in a complete panic. I kept expecting a phone call after someone reviewed the security cameras and saw what happened. I didn't think I'd get fired, but I didn't know for sure that I wouldn't. I texted a friend, and my friend told me to call the office number anyway and talk to the night service. I didn't know if that was the right move or not, but she convinced me. 5 minutes after I talked to the night service, the owner called me and said it was fine and they would take care of it, and that it was good that I called. They even kinda laughed and seemed not at all mad. I'm sure on Monday all of my coworkers will see the email for the night calls and make fun of me forever, but at least I still have a job. Story 6. TIFU by eating an entire pack of sugar-free Werther candies. My mom had a packet of sugar-free Werthers stashed in the kitchen that nobody was meant to touch. I touched them. I was craving some sugar and they were right there in front of me. I took the entire bag and snuck it into my room to consume. Okay, I managed to get myself to bed and succumb to the sweet release of sleep, fearing that I will wake up in the middle of the night, my bed laid to waste by a violent barrage of dung. But the worst did not come to happen, thankfully. The liquid diarrhea has lessened substantially, probably because I have literally nothing in me for my body to even digest. But the flatulence is still going strong, albeit in a much less frequency than the day before. Haha, just realized from all the comments that I ate sugar-free candy to deal with a sugar craving XD. Not the smartest thing I did. It also seems like I'm not the only one to fall for this despicable trap. I've read up on the infamous sugar-free Haribos. My condolences go to all the victims. And I agree with the person in the comments. Why aren't these laxative labels more pronounced? Like, be honest with me, who is only going to eat like 2-3 of these if you have an entire bag. They were delicious, addicting even. I couldn't stop eating them at a rapid pace. One candy turned into 5, which turned into 10. And before I knew it, I ate almost 30 of them. All was good. I was happy. But then, the stomach pain arrived. It was subtle at first, just your usual pain. I ignored it, but then it got even worse. Flatulence arrived like an evil god, and it wouldn't stop. Gas was building up inside my intestinal tract, and I couldn't stop it. I farted and farted, trying my best to relieve the pressure that had built up in my intestines, but to no avail. This continued until that dreaded moment. I let go of a particularly devious fart that I was holding in, and it was then that I sensed it. The sense of heat, the sense of liquid spurting out of a tight hole. I sharted. I immediately went to the bathroom, and what came next was a hurricane of pure liquidized feces. It was disgusting. It was painful. It was scary. I have never experienced something like this. I finished my tribulation and left the bathroom, safely disposing of the rancid boxers. I knew something was up, something about those devious candies. I went to the Werther website, and there I saw it, in small print, hidden below the nutritional information, was a warning. It read, excessive consumption may produce laxative effects. I was gobsmacked. My jaw dropped. Hell, even my heart dropped. I couldn't believe my eyes. Those candies I ate to relieve my sugar cravings were actually my doom. I did some calculations and realized I ate almost 80 grams of the natural laxative present in the candy, isomalt. I did some research and I was shocked even more. The amount of isomalt you had to consume to pose a risk of intestinal distress was 20-30 grams. I consumed 80. It has been almost 12 hours and I have been to the toilet an untold amount of times. Even now, I am writing this very post in the toilet, contemplating my dire future and if I will see the light of day again. 12 hours and the clock just struck 2 a.m. and yet the poison shows no sign of slowing. I am in for a long night, my friends. No information anywhere tells me the length of the laxative effect. I might be patient 0, only I could be the one to eat 30 of those sweets in the span of 30 minutes. Whilst I am living in this hellish torture, I have decided to warn the people of the world about my fate, lest they also think of doing something so stupid and uneducated. I will never be touching any sugar-free alternatives ever again in my life. This day will be remembered as a day of pain, a day of suffering, and as a day of agony. I wish this fate upon no man, not even my greatest enemy. Story 7. TIFU by sending a message to the wrong coworker. This was at an old job years ago, but I still feel awful about it today. I was in a senior art position working on a huge creative project, and was jointly responsible for managing art interns. Generally, we had them work on lower-level stuff, but they were free to workshop their own ideas and input, and bring them to us. One of my colleagues was the douchebag in every office, who would meddle in everyone's business, and was always putting everyone down to try and improve his position. He was pissed off he wasn't in charge of more, so he took it out by trying to lord himself over every other artist. We had clashed for years with no resolution, and by that point I learned it was just easiest to get along with him by making noncommittal sounds about whatever scheming bullshit he was on that day. One of our interns was working on a fairly complex idea in his spare time. I tried to let him down gently that the scope of what he was trying was huge and would have to be really good in order for us to use it, but to see it as good practice if nothing else. Asshole coworker saw him working on this and went nuclear, lighting up my PMs, saying that we couldn't possibly use it and that I needed to convince him to stop. I made noncommittal sounds like usual so he'd leave me alone, but over the following days he persisted, with the narrative becoming that it was my responsibility to stop the intern, and that it was cruel to let him continue. In hindsight, I should have told him to do it himself, if he felt that strongly, but I disliked dealing with him so much that I didn't want to initiate an argument. I finally responded, "I feel bad having to tell his work isn't good enough to be used," that was about as politely as I could put it that I didn't want to be put in this position. I would feel bad having to do this on your behalf. I checked the recipient and did a double take. I'd sent the last message to the intern in question. My heart leaped into my mouth. There was a few awkward seconds while we both parsed what happened. Finally he responded, and to his credit he was perfectly graceful and professional about it, but I felt awful. I felt especially bad because our relationship was awkward when he first joined, and he was warming up to me recently, which had just gone out the window. I apologized profusely, but the damage was done. I told asshole coworker what transpired, and he thought it was hilarious that he got 2 birds with 1 stone, putting one guy down while making me look like the asshole. Thankfully, the intern went on to become a pretty great artist and actually surpass me and do pretty well for himself, but I wouldn't be surprised if he still held a grudge about it. And now I'm super thorough about double checking which window is active before I bash the send button.